Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with episode 8 of From Sparks to Skyscrapers. Special guest today, Ryan Martin from Bora Stitch, and he brought gifts. First guest to bring a gift. These are awesome hats with the Sparks to Skyscrapers on the side, so I think I'm just going to...
Not the actual font. I tried to steal it off the webpage, but it was low res.
It's all good. Is that all right, Manning, if I wear a hat? All right. Thank you.
It looks great, man.
Thank you. We appreciate the gifts greatly.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here today. So, I just want to jump right in. I kind of want to ask how did you start Bora Stitch? Are you the founder?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
How did you go? I know you mentioned you didn't go to college.
Nope.
From high school to starting this company, what was that time frame like for you?
Well, first and foremost, I was lucky to have some mentors in my high school that recognized right off the front. When I was a kid in elementary school, I had a learning disability. I was diagnosed at the time with a learning disability. But long story short, I was great at 6 years old, I could take apart a car engine,
Wow.
and put it back together without instructions, and people recognized that right up front. And when I went through school, I would struggle with math and English, but I was great with science, and things like that. And so when I got to high school, as soon as I entered the graphic arts program, the Mr. Trapani, Al Trapani, he recognized right away. He was like, this kid, he might not do the academic stuff great, but he's good at everything else. So I right off the top I took an apprenticeship on the summer time during high school, and went through the apprenticeship, learned graphic arts, screen printing, all the different things. Back when you actually had to do offset press with cameras and shoot film and stuff. And then that got me into basically a graphic art position. I went into screen printing. Then I discovered embroidery through a company that I applied for, and I really just loved the idea of programming machines and watching them do their thing. And that just intrigued me. That was back when software was still on 3-inch floppy disks and things like that. And and that just really intrigued me. And it got me away from the chemical process that's in screen printing, which has gotten a lot better since. But it was just a cleaner environment. It was nice, and I love color art. And and then I just at some point I moved from Florida. I'm from Florida. I moved from Florida up to Pennsylvania, looking for a better life. And I got into the same kind of thing, and then eventually started a similar company with a partner, and then eventually branched off into Bora Stitch about 7 years now. And then basically very quickly grew the company from where it started to now.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about that, but I also want to ask, when you were growing up, what kind of stuff did you enjoy doing, like sports or gaming?
Sports, baseball was my favorite. I'm a big baseball person. Basketball, anything sports. Got into skateboarding. I'm the kind of person, I get into something and I just get into it.
Yeah.
I've got to be into it. Sports was a big thing, and but just really mechanical stuff. As a kid, there was a company back in the day called Radio Shack. They're still around.
Of course, I know Radio Shack. Yep.
So my parents would get me these, instead of toys, I would get kits from Radio Shack, and you'd learn how to build a radio, or you'd learn how to build this. So I would just constantly tinker. My mom jokes and says that she'd wake up in the middle of the night to check on me, and at 4 years old, and I'm up doing stuff. I'm tinkering. I'm taking things apart. That's a funny thing. I would take things apart, not know how to put them back together. And so anything, just working with my hands and stuff is something I was always good at. I used to joke and say I could take apart anything and put it back together and it would be better.
Yeah.
And so that's just something I was always really, really good at. Yeah.
It's super interesting. I think that mindset of just constantly doing things on your own, like that tinkering, as you mentioned, it kind of leads you right into what you're doing now, like being an entrepreneur, starting the company, figuring things out on your own. And it's something I think about a lot, like being in college. Obviously I'm working in the Entrepreneurship Center, but honestly, my worst nightmare, not my worst nightmare, but one of them is a 9 to 5. I don't know, I don't want to be, going in and having people tell me what to do and feeling like some of the stuff may be pointless, that kind of thing. And I'm just kind of curious if you have anything to say about that dynamic of being an entrepreneur, of just kind of making it's hard work. Those hours, like I said, the 9 to 5, but you're probably working more than that.
There's pluses and minuses to both. Sometimes I envy the guy who just goes in and just does his job and leaves, and then whereas I'm after hours and 7 days a week and trying to make sure it's working and feeling the pressure of satisfying not only customers but my employees and my crew and things like that. It's a lot of pressure. but yeah, I'm with you on the 9 to 5 thing, because even when I was working for people, I would quickly be working for myself.
Yeah.
You know, I would quickly assert the fact that, hey, I know a better way to do this, and if you let me try, if I can prove it, let me do it. And everywhere I worked, even though I've only worked for a few people in my life, and I just always felt like I was working for myself.
Just that creative mindset, for sure.
Now some people, it's not for everybody. You know,
Yeah.
I think that some people would rather just, you know, and they would do a great job, and they go in 9 to 5, they do their thing, they get their 2 weeks, you know, they get their bonus at the end of the year, and that's great, because
we need that.
The economy needs that. You know, not everyone's wired the same way. But yeah, I enjoy if I want to wake up a little bit late one day, you know, I know my crew's got me, you know, they're going to be taking care of stuff. I like to I'm a big outdoors person, so I like to, one of my big fears is, like, you plan a ski trip a month ahead of time, and then you go up and it's raining,
right,
you know, or something. Whereas I will watch the calendar, I'll work a weekend, I'll watch the calendar, I'll watch the weather.
Just book it.
Yeah, and then I'm ready to go. Or if I'm going like camping, I enjoy the Adirondacks and backcountry camping and stuff. And so I don't want to go if it's going to be 55 and raining for 7 days.
Yeah.
You know? So I'll see a good stretch of weather, and, you know, so that it allows you a lot of freedom. So for the same sense that you're sacrificing a lot, but you get these times where you're like, I'm so glad I do what I do. You know?
Yeah, I think I'm also curious to hear about, you said you have employees now and a staff, a whole crew. When you first started, was it just you, or did you start with the crew?
I started, Boar Stitch started with me and my best #1 guy named Nick. And he's an integral part of everything that we do. We've almost split the company into 2 halves, even though it's technically mine. It's like he handles the wholesale contract production stuff,
okay,
and I'm more of the custom pain in the butt kind of stuff.
Right.
Where, like, you know, you really detail-oriented sewing, stuff that requires a lot of attention to detail. But he's the one who kind of like keeps the business, you know, in check and going and making money, and I'm the one who kind of oversees everything. And rarely do I have to go in and say, hey, I think you need to do this, or we need to do that. But yeah, so it's like I said, I can answer these questions in so many different ways.
Well, did you have any marketing knowledge? Like, how did you grow the company from where it started to where it is now? Like, what were the strategies that you used, and where did you pick up on those strategies?
Well, the first and foremost is just quality work and great customer service. I feel like if you do quality work and great customer, especially now with social media, you know, if you're posting quality stuff on social media, people are going to look at the quality and they're going to come see you. So your first marketing thing, there's no point in spending a bunch of money on a marketing campaign. I mean, you can spend $10,000, $15,000 easily in just a few months. If customers are coming in, they're not happy with the quality.
Doesn't matter.
Elsewhere. Yeah, that's going to win you in the short term, but it's not going to win you in the long term. So our marketing has always been great customer service. I get all the time emails. People respond to my email to them, and they say, thanks for the quick response.
Yeah.
That's a huge deal. Thanks for the quick response. Sometimes I think people are emailing and they're just not getting responses for 24, 48 hours, sometimes not even at all. We respond to everybody, whether you need 1 sock embroidered or you need 10,000 hoodies embroidered. We respond quickly, and just the quality. Now, also along with that, we have done the Google thing where we make sure that our Google app is ready to go. You know, it's up to date. If someone Googles in this area, you know, where we are, they're going to find us. Yep. You know, that costs a little bit of money per month. You know, having our Instagram up to date, which it's kind of here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that is the #1 way of marketing for sure. If you just do quality work, people will find you.
I kind of want to switch gears, not entirely, but I want you to explain the Victis contract, and I also want you to kind of explain what Victis is and who approached who. I want to leave it to you to kind of describe it.
First and foremost, the guys at Victis are absolutely some of the coolest guys.
Okay.
They gave us a shot when they could have went to any bigger company with more capacity and anything like that. But again, back to our previous question about the quality. I haven't asked them this question exactly to them, but I would say that their answer would be that they were watching us and they saw the quality on the Instagram. And a guy by the name of Nate stopped by once, and he had a challenging project, and we did it for him, and we did it quickly. And and so basically what Victis is a really great story, right in this area, in the Valley Forge area. They started, I believe, in Blackwood, New Jersey, and they moved for logistical reasons here. Hopefully I've got this all right.
Yeah.
And And they have grown a small little baseball bat company, wood bat company, into one of the most popular wood bat companies, and also now aluminum bats.
Yeah.
But that the players are just, they just love them. They've made a piece of artwork out of the baseball bat. They have artists there that will airbrush and they paint and they do all kinds of great stuff. They do bats for Bryce Harper. They do bats for so many bats. If you watch the
MLB games, go watch an MLB game. You'll see a Victis bat.
Go watch MLB games. Watch the last World Series. Zoom in. Look at what the bats are swinging, and you see the Victis label on everything. But yeah, so we basically, when they came to us, they gave us a shot, and I just knew I wasn't going to let them down. That's all. And and mainly just because of my love of baseball. I don't even care about the money. That's another thing. Money's not very important to me. My important thing is just making sure that we do a good job all the time. If you do that, the money will come.
Yeah.
So then they would bring a bigger project, and they bring a bigger project, and as
so they just kept coming back. It wasn't a contract. They just kept coming back.
Sometimes some of the projects were difficult. We had a project where they had a retail issue with their batting gloves, and they needed the batting gloves to be adhered to the tag that hangs on the thing a certain way because it wasn't meeting the standards they need, and they needed it quick. So me and my my main sewing person, her name is Missy. She's my sewing tech. She went to Temple, and she knows everything sewing. And we managed to come up with a solution that worked for them, and they were able to get the batting gloves out to the retail stores, and apparently it worked because we didn't hear anything back from them.
Yeah.
And then they came up with some really good ideas where they were doing personal projects for their guys who use their bats. So we've done these really cool hoodie projects where the player gets a hoodie that's personalized. Some of them even had the state flag or the country flag of origin. We did some really cool stuff for them. And again, I can't thank them enough. They did some really cool stuff, and in turn, if you haven't taken a tour of the Victis facility, you need to go. Are you a baseball fan?
Oh my, yeah, I played all through high school.
Well, we need to get that figured out because you just will be cheesing the whole time. It's just you walk into their showroom, and I'm not a very jealous person, but I definitely envy. I'm like, man, if I could make our showroom look like this. As soon as you walk in, you just feel the baseball world.
Yeah,
they've got signed photos and pictures and bats everywhere. Really, really cool stuff. And they just get it. They just get that. Only so many people in the world are going to swing a baseball bat in the pros. But if you want like a hoodie that has a Victis logo that your favorite player is swinging, you can get that. So their apparel thing has just exploded. They've gotten so big. It's really amazing their story, and it's a sense of inspiration. And I'm meaning to get my crew there. I would love to get my crew there and take them on a tour and show them what can happen with hard work, the right moves. Jared is the president there, one of the owners as well, and they're just great guys, and everyone there is just great.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that little hardship that you went through with the stitching. It's kind of a smaller thing, obviously, but it's problem solving.
Yep.
Entrepreneurship.
Yep.
All problem solving.
Yep.
I want to ask you about some of the more macro, bigger hardships that you've went through, and how you dealt with those, the strategies that you use to get through difficulties and just problem solving in general, and then also some of the bright spots as well, because we talk a lot on this show on strategies to deal with the bad, but also how do you deal with it when you're doing well and you want to keep that consistency?
Yeah, well, that's small business is the consistency, keeping things going, thinking a few weeks ahead of your production schedule, not getting zoned in on one thing, making sure that things are going. Some of the harder things are just keeping your crew motivated and your crew's morale up. I think that's something that some small business owners miss out on. Is just I'm the guy who's trying to keep the morale up. I want everyone to be happy. I want everyone to be excited to come to work. Everyone knows sometimes it's not that exciting. But yes, that is one of the challenging things, is just making sure, because you can see when employees aren't feeling it, and maybe they're thinking, maybe this is my job, and you want to keep them around because you've got skill and you've got time in them. And challenges. The pandemic was a big challenge. That I think that was a challenge for everyone.
Yeah, we can dive into that if you want. I mean, what aspects of it were challenging? Was there anything in particular, or just?
I'll tell you what, man. That first, I just got back from a backcountry camping canoe trip like 14 days or something. I take these blocks of time off. I work 7 days a week. Anyone who knows me, I'm always at work, but then I take these blocks of time off. And I just came back and I walk in and they're like, they're shutting us down. I said, what do you mean they're shutting us down? I was listening to the radio, to the music the whole way.
So this is March?
Yeah, this is March like 14th, 15th.
Right around the same time school got canceled.
Yep. And I knew there was a pandemic. It wasn't that I didn't know, but I come back and my employees just have this scared look on their face and they're like, they're shutting us down. I'm like, what do you mean? And to fast forward just a few days, then that Friday, the government, decided they were going to do what they're going to do. And that next Saturday, I walk in, or that next Monday, I guess, and I'm just all by myself. I gave everyone off. Let's just take off, see what's going on. And I'm walking around my shop with all these sewing machines and all these embroidery heads, and it's quiet. And it took me a couple of days, and then all of a sudden, it dawned on me. I was like, well, there's a hospital right down the road, Paley Hospital. What if they come knocking? Because right then everything was masks. Masks. We need masks. No one can get masks. And I thought, well, I don't want to get caught. I don't want to get caught down. Like I want to make sure if they come knocking that we can sew masks. So I started YouTubing about masks, and I'm just in my shop all by myself.
Working on masks.
Well, and then I just had to learn.
Tinkering.
Yeah, I had to learn how to make masks. So and you couldn't get any material then. So I was going through, and back to the Victis thing. So we do custom hoodies for them. So sometimes we remove drawstrings and put in custom drawstrings. So we had boxes of these drawstrings. So with the materials we had, in-house, I was able to start making masks. And I wasn't interested in selling them at all. This is the beginning of the first 2 weeks. Right in the beginning, yeah. So we put up an Instagram post up that said, hey, if anyone needs masks, come and get them, And immediately we had pizza delivery people, fire companies, ambulance companies calling us up saying, hey, can we get some masks? And I would say, how many you need? And they would need 10 or 20, or 5, And to a positive side here, so everyone's view of the pandemic's different. Once we got through that week and a half and we were making these masks, all of a sudden there was this beautiful thing that happened where the pizza place that we gave the mask to dropped off 5 pizzas. The catering company that had a wedding to do that they had to do because it was already contracted, that they were going to do it. They dropped off all this like catering food, all this, great stuff. And for a month or so, we were just getting all this stuff. The fire company, Berwyn Fire Company, they needed 50 masks immediately. And our masks were kinds that tied around your head simply because we didn't have the elastic. And they seemed to like that because it was secure. If you're trying to get someone on a gurney and you're doing your thing, you want the mask to be on your face and be secure. And so we just donated all these masks. So I think we donated over, I think we came up with a number, maybe 750 masks, somewhere around there. We lost count at some point. And then once things started calming down, people wanted to know if they could buy the masks. And I wasn't comfortable like selling the masks because I knew they weren't K95s and N95s. So we decided to, let's do it. And I've always wanted to make something in America. That's been my goal. We can get to that. But so all of a sudden I'm like, well, here we are making a product. So we started making products. We started putting them in vacuum sealed bags and putting a little Made in America sticker on them. And so people wanted to buy them. And so I said, hey, I kind of gave a disclaimer, and we sold them as cheap as we possibly could. I think they were like, $3, maybe $6. Yeah. And people were buying those. And then once the global economy came back up and started supplying masks again, then we didn't have to do it. And I was glad. I did not want to make I didn't want to make money off of the pandemic. A lot of people did. It wasn't my thing really. But that, and then just not seeing the business come in, and then wondering what I'm going to do, and everyone suggesting I lay off my workforce. So what we did was we kind of furloughed our workforce. A couple of them wanted to leave. They're like, I'm moving in with my girlfriend, or I'm going to go visit my parents, or I'm going to do whatever. And and then we brought some of them back. Nick stayed. He's definitely part of it. And and then we got a couple big jobs through that time to get us through. And we were down 125,000 in sales that year, most likely.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it took me a while. It took me a while to really grasp the damage. At first, I was like, "Oh, we made it through! Yay! This is great." And it wasn't until like the beginning of last year, middle of last year, that I realized the damage. Because just leading up to the pandemic, I was focused on trying to make. I wanted to start designing hoodies, shirts, stuff in-house, design them with the help of Missy. We had another woman named Kate who's a fantastic sewer. And right up to the pandemic, I had them running samples. I called it my R&D department. So my goal was always, if the embroidery production facility can make enough profit that I could pay people to do R&D, great. Because now not only can I pay everyone, pay the health insurance, but I can have a little R&D department learning how to make products. and we were making hoodies. We were working with making custom lined hoodies and various just cool things. And as soon as some of my customers who were into the apparel industry, they wanted them. They're like, I'll take 50 of those. I'll take 60 of those. I'll take 150 of those. And then the pandemic happened, and I lost the skill of Kate. We kept Missy. And it was tough. And looking back, I'm like, man, we were right on the verge. And now with the global supply chain issues, I can't help but think, man, if that wouldn't have happened, we were able to continue that process, start making hoodies and polo shirts and things in-house at some decent quality, that we could have then been helping the situation. Because right now, if you call me up and say, hey, I need 1,200 hats, it's hard to even get that.
Get that.
Yeah.
So I am wondering, you mentioned you don't want to make money off the pandemic.
Yeah.
I understand that. I also want to ask, is there a difference to you between making money off of the pandemic, but what you were doing, it's more like you're innovating through the pandemic?
That's a good point.
And providing a service that is of value. I mean, just like with anything like that, people make money on war, people make money,
unfortunately,
through, means that aren't necessarily high on the moral compass.
Yeah.
But like, what are your what was your reasoning behind not wanting to make money off of it? As you said, you're down in sales. Like at the end of the day, you're helping people. It's not like it's a cause where you're making weapons for no, you're giving people masks. So what was the hesitancy there?
I don't know. And that's a good question. I think there's just something in me that just never wanted to, that just wanted to be, pure about when you're making money.
I get it. I was just curious.
No, I think it's what it is. I think there's a lot of, I don't want to, money can be the root of all evil when it's done wrong, and it can be the root of, it could be great when it's done right. And I just, off the top, I just didn't want the company to be, profiting off of something that was just, a lot of people were being hurt by,
I get it.
Yeah, I know a lot of, and hey, we were getting calls, hey, the shop I used to do embroidery with for my company is not in business anymore,
It's tough.
And and it was tough. Yeah.
I want to ask about words of advice for young entrepreneurs getting started, and that process of getting started for you.
Yep.
And what that was like.
Yeah, well, my situation was I didn't have any financial backing. I didn't have anything that was going to help me out. I didn't have my idea was I wanted to control my own destiny, like we talked about before with the 9 to 5. And my words of advice would be you just to do the best job you possibly can for any given day's capacity. Meaning, every day is a little different. If you make sure that every job that you're doing, whether you're making toothbrushes or you're making hoodies, if you just are passionate about what you do and just do it to the best of your ability for any given day, because some days are different than others. Some days the machines aren't running as quite that's good, and jobs got to get out and shipped, and it's got to be in Georgia by 4, and stuff like that. You do your absolute best, and I honestly, I have to say, it might sound cliche, but if you just do the best job you can possibly do, you can't ask for anything more, because you can't expect any more than that.
The best, yeah.
Yeah. So if you do quality, people, if you build it, they will come. Another baseball term. And and if you just, I feel like that's if you build it, they will come. If you do a good job and you're not afraid to work hard, you have to work a lot. Like I said, I work 7 days a week because I found it's less stressful. It's less stressful for me.
Break it up and get it done.
It's less stressful for me to work 7 days a week than to try and force a weekend off every 4 days a month or four
I think
four
about
times
that
a month.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, because then you come in on Monday and you're stressing. You're coming on Monday and you're like, man, I got to get all this done. And
you just do a little bit on the Sunday. Or
now everyone's situation is different. I'm in basically manufacturing. It's like a off spin of like manufacturing, and in manufacturing is just time. You can only do so many pieces. We're in what I call a low profit, high volume business.
Okay.
Nobody wants to pay $100 for a hat. So you have to
pay a lot of
you have to make a lot of hats for a low profit. If you're making $6 a hat, you want to do 1,000 hats to make $6,000. So in our world, you are in the situation where you are you have to like right now, like I could be at my shop right now helping my crew get through an order, but I chose to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So time is money. So when I go in on a Saturday, I slack off a little bit. I watch some YouTube videos, but then it's time to get to work. And whatever I can chunk out on Saturday or Sunday is something I don't have to do on Monday. Not to mention if I want to take some time off, then I really ramp it up and get as much stuff as I can to where my crew doesn't need me for that chunk of time. But yeah, when it comes to entrepreneurial stuff, you just have to be focused. And I'm a believer in keeping here you go. Here's my advice: is keep your personal life and your business life separate. I see so many people trying to run their businesses with their phones, and I can't tell you, I don't want to rat anyone out, but the emails that I get from people who are using their phone are incomplete. There's no signature line. The thoughts are not complete. You can tell they're distracted. And the people that I work with through email that are using a desktop surface, right, some kind, their emails are complete, their thoughts are complete, they're quick to respond. I get a lot of emails like, yo, how much is embroidery? Well, I mean, what are you doing? Yeah. Are you doing hoodies? Are you doing hats? What's your logo look like? So keep your business and things separate, no matter if you can. If you can keep your business life separate from your personal life and don't mix the two, and that way when you go home at night, you just enjoy your life, because we all spend. I mean, when you ever think about like how many hours you actually get to yourself?
Yeah.
Like if you're doing let's say you're doing a 9 to 5. You get home, it's 5. You drive home. You're not home till 6. You cook some dinner. You do whatever you do to kind of wind down, and then you're looking at the clock and you're like, what? I got 3.5, 4 hours before I should technically get to bed. I stay up late, but
yeah, no, me too. Yeah. And for college students too, that's always a balance, because we live here.
Yeah.
So we have the email at our fingertips. We're all on campus all the time. Yeah. There's always some assignment that's got to get done.
Yeah.
I always could be doing something. I have to force myself to just not do anything sometimes, because like I said, being in this environment of on campus all the time, always something to do, you always feel like you should be working.
Yeah.
And it's actually an interesting thing that I kind of struggle with when I think about entrepreneurship sometimes, because you're not working a 9 to 5, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be up at whatever hour of the night thinking about something, working on something that you just can't get your mind off of.
All it takes is I'll be laying in bed, and all it takes is, I'm trying to go to sleep and I'm doing my thing, and I notoriously have trouble sleeping, and all of a sudden I think about something I have to take care of at work, or something that's going to happen in the next week or whatever, and I get that little ping. I call it a little ping of anxiety. It's a little ping, and your pulse rate jumps up a little bit, and then you're like, no, I'm not going to sleep. I can imagine in a college lifestyle, you have a lot of pressure on you. Yeah. You're trying to live your personal life. You're trying to think about your future.
And a lot of times those things are intertwined too.
Yes.
So
so that would be a great skill. If I was going to tell anybody, I think everyone should go to college if they have the ability, because there's a lot of things that I could have benefited from college had I been able to do it. Just try and realize how much time you're actually mingling the two together, and how confusing it can get, and how discombobulated everything can kind of end up, because you're not separating the two. Whereas if you can separate the two and have your private life and your personal life, you're going to be more successful. Yeah. I mean, the whole multitasking thing if you ask me, that went out with like the 90s, early 2000s. So everyone I know who multitasks, they make lots of mistakes. And in my industry, you can't make mistakes. You can't make mistakes because you're multitasking.
Results. Yeah.
Exactly. Almost every time I've made a mistake, it's because I'm multitasking.
It's a physical product that you're having.
I mean, are you better off doing, trying to handle 6 things at once and doing all of them at some half capacity, or just focusing on this task till it's done, this task till it's done, this task till it's done, and doing them all right? There's probably a happy medium in the middle there,
for sure.
But I've actually preached that to my crew. I think multitasking is an old phrase, and I think it's gone. And I think obviously there's things you got to do to multitask. Answer a phone call while you're doing stuff, but focus on one job, get it done. Sometimes your brain, nowadays our brains are programmed to just, we want data, man. We want the stimulation. That's why we watch the YouTube videos and we watch the stuff. But the multitasking is a problem. I've had employees who I allow people to have their phone on them, but you can see when the mistake happens. I was watching them for the past 30 minutes, and they were on their phone a lot, and the mistake happened because they were multitasking. If you have 6 jobs, let's just do one job at a time, get it all done, get it done to the highest possible ability you can get it done, and then go to the next job. Whereas multitasking, you're more likely to have more damage, more error, more problems, and stress. Your brain is firing on all cylinders when you're multitasking. Let's just do one thing at a time. That would be my advice, especially for the younger college crews. Yeah. And I know it's hard, man. College pressures you. You got a lot of pressure.
And from a lot of different angles. So I just want to talk about some of the good things as well. What are some of the highlights working in the factory and,
The factory.
Factory, or what do you call it? I don't know.
Well, the one thing that I thought about before this podcast was how in the environment that we're in, to be able to have your crew around you and to be able to have good days and joke around and have fun and I know that there are days where we've been worked, we're really pressing to get stuff out, but we've had such a good time joking with each other, telling jokes, teasing each other, helping each other out, solving problems together. That is a thing that you're not going to get in some of the jobs where you're not in an entrepreneurial situation. I would like to think all of my crew is an entrepreneurial because they're all helping towards the end goal. Whereas if you're in a job that maybe is a cubicle type job, you're not really intermingling with everybody, and you don't get that camaraderie except for maybe at the water cooler. Mm-hmm. Whereas most of the places I've worked at have been like that, where the owner or the boss is with you all the time, and you get to tell jokes and you get to work through things. That's something I really appreciate and I cherish. When we've had a couple of crews that maybe weren't over the years that weren't as good as the one now, but the one now is really good. We all have a good time together. We range in age, so the teasing can be fun, you know, and everything, and we're open minded and we're all politically open. We joke around about everything. Yeah. One thing we do that we love is if you're on this side of political or you're on this side of the political fence, it doesn't matter, because if someone comes in and they kind of bring up the subject of this side, we take the other side on purpose, almost like devil's advocate, and then we'll drive it home. We won't let them win, even if you don't like this side, we'll drive it home. And what you find is when you do that, when you're open-minded to do that, and you will drive the side that you're not necessarily aligned with, you actually learn things sometimes. Sometimes you go, wow, well, when you really word
when you think about it like that,
when you think about it like that, I mean, maybe it's, and we'll go the other way where this person comes in, did you hear on the news they said this, and then I'll, and then we'll drive it, and it's fun, and so having the entrepreneurial area like we have, where everyone's involved and everyone's getting along and everyone's teasing each other, and they tease me, I love it, and it's really, really great. That's definitely the good side of being your own boss and being running your own company.
Well, and you can create that environment as well. I mean, we're talking about like the whole political spectrum thing. I mean, it's good. I think that you can get to a point where you can have those conversations, and sadly, a lot of places that's not the case. And
in small business, you can get away with it.
And it's kind of a taboo subject. But being able to talk to people across the aisle is something that shouldn't go away. It's very important, I think. Cooperation.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised what you learn when you're willing to go to those fringes, and do that. I have friends that have that work at very large financial firms and banks and invest different types of, I don't want to name any names, but and they tell me how sometimes it just can be toxic, and they're looking for another job, and turnover too. I see a lot of people have a lot of turnover. They're in jobs that they might not necessarily be happy with. Where something about the entrepreneurial state of mind, where at any given day I can come in and there can be a problem I have to solve, and it's different. And it's different from what I did yesterday, even though it's sewing or it's embroidery or it's something with an order that needs to be filled.
There's always something.
And sometimes it can get a little stressful and mundane, but that it keeps your brain fresh, keeps your brain. Sometimes with employees too, I'll see that, hey, this particular employee's been on the cut table for a while. Mm-hmm. Let's get them over here and let's get them running this, because I just know what it's like to be doing the same thing over and over and over again. That's but that whole family orientation or thing in a small business is fun, and I kind of come from there. Like I said, I've worked for these small businesses my whole life, ever since I got out of high school, and I just really enjoy it. And the idea of maybe not having that would make the days get long.
Being a small business, I think a lot of times you get that opportunity to really get in touch with your clientele. What do you think some of those relationships have been like for you? Do you turn down jobs, or how do you work with clients? To get their products to them?
Fortunately and unfortunately, I try not to turn anybody down, because you never know what is going to be the next big thing, we try and take on every single job we possibly can. The only thing that would ever cause us to turn a job down, even money is never a thing with me. That's it doesn't matter. We've done plenty of jobs for no profit, for sure.
The gifts. Thank you for the gifts.
Because you never know. And it just happened recently. We had a company, I'll name drop them, Jack's Chicken Shack, came in, and he had all these patches already made. He had them made overseas. He got some great price on them. We do patches, but he brought them in, and great guy, and so we took care of this job for him, a really good job. most people would turn them away because you're not selling the patches, you're not selling the garments, whatever. But I was like, this is a cool thing. We're just going to take care of it. And wouldn't you know, he knows a guy who has set 12 baseball teams, baseball, that he's like a traveling baseball manager. He's got all these things. He calls up. We're a dealer for Richardson and North Face and various companies. And of course, he can't get hats from his current supplier. And we happen to be able to get the hats. So now we have about 300, I think it's like 350 of the high-end Richardson PTS hats that we're doing for him. And he couldn't get them anywhere else. So I could have turned down Jack's Chicken Shack,
but I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity.
But I wouldn't have got that opportunity. And you never know. We get a lot of guys who come in and they're starting an apparel company. I mean, I've heard this a million times.
Yeah.
A million times. I'm starting an apparel company.
Like I'm starting an app. I get it.
and almost none of them come back after we do that initial order. But I always follow through with it because you just never know when that one person
is going to blow up.
I've read a bunch of magazines and about my industry and stuff, and there's always that story. Customer number 74 came in, needed a hat done, and then now they're a $14 million a year revenue apparel company. You just don't know. And I feel like the Victis thing is kind of like that. They came in and we did what we could do. And then over the years, we've done some really great projects with them. But I try not to turn anything down. The only times that we have to turn stuff down, and even when we turn stuff down, we refer them. So we have a lot of people that we know in our network of people who maybe have an embroidery machine in their basement, things like that. And we'll say, look, we can't help you with your Christmas stockings, but you can contact this person. And we're constantly, I can show you a list of emails. Thank you so much. Thanks for your quick response. Thanks for referring us. This is great. But sometimes it's a time thing. Some people have a way of procrastination, especially for this type of industry. And they have a golf tournament on Saturday and it's Thursday, and they want 5 golf shirts for the foursome or whatever it is, 4 shirts for their foursome. And we say, I just don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, we can't even get the shirts here in time, So sometimes, and then sometimes be like, if you can go to Target, if you can go to a company and you can bring them in, and we've done it for them. But yeah, we just try not to turn anyone down ever, because you just don't know who's going to be the next one, or who's going to know a contact, or who's going to have someone who works somewhere. And it's happened many times where, it turns out my wife works at this particular financial firm and they're looking for something for Christmas presents or whatever. And yeah.
Real quick, I just want to, I don't know if Manning mentioned this, but I don't know if it's true or not. Do you have an issue with like that boat getting stuck in the Panama Canal? Is that something?
Yes.
Oh God.
Yes. Well, I can't tell you exactly what was on that boat.
Okay.
But that was another thing, man. It was like, and now here we are, getting with the Omicron thing. But yeah, when that boat got stuck, there was a lot of problems. We were looking to buy a new embroidery machine.
Okay.
The machines come freighted from Japan. Most of them are from Japan. Some of the best embroidery machines. And yeah, they. I talked to a salesperson, and they were pretty sure that some of their stuff was on that boat. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. What was that? The Evergreen?
I have no idea. I just wanted to just quickly touch on it.
Our industry, man, has been crushed by the shipping problem.
I'm sure, because it's all textile.
It's all textile stuff.
Yeah. How do you deal with those supply chain issues, and is there anything that you do to kind of differentiate yourself through those issues?
Just we're relentless. Like sometimes it's so frustrating, but when a customer calls up, especially the large orders are the problem. So a customer calls up and says they need 2,500 trucker hats and they need them by a certain date. We will just search supplier after supplier after supplier. We'll put in 2 hours of just working it, trying to figure out, calling back the customer, 25, 30 emails. Hey, you wanted navy, but there's this blue that's, a deep blue. It looks like navy, and it's not a mesh back, but it is a snap back. What do you think about that? Are you willing to mix and match? Are you willing to go outside your guardrails of what you want? Mm-hmm. And
how do customers respond to that? Like if you're
most of them are very appreciative. And what's fun, in the beginning, people didn't get it, but now everyone we talk to, I'll send an email and say, hey, due to the global supply chain issues, we can't get. They write back, I understand, man. I'm in the construction business. I can't get windows that match.
Right.
I know a guy who was my main employee, Nick. He built a house last year. Actually built it. Had a contractor build it for him, and they were like, well, do all the windows have to match? And he's like, well, yeah, the windows kind of have to match, And so the construction crews were having the same thing. We have construction guys come in and saying, last year I could get you 32 colors of shingles. This year I get you 3. So that's what we do, is just the relentless, not giving up on it. Just keep trying, and what it is it's just time. It comes down to time and emails, being cordial with people, being upfront. I recently had a person said, thank you for being upfront and honest with me, and I have to sleep at night, so I just try and be as honest as I possibly can with everybody. But yeah, that relentlessness, if you're not willing to put in that extra effort, you're going to lose the order, and the order's going to go somewhere else. But the global supply chain has just completely crushed our industry. It's crazy.
Hopefully it gets fixed.
Hopefully it gets fixed, and hopefully our country and other countries learn something from it. Remember in the beginning when Puerto Rico was hit by that hurricane, and then we realized all of our medical IV bags are made in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, it's like, oh.
That dates way back, like we're talking 30, 40 years, some problems, people were managing things wrong, and they were just going for the cheapest, highest profit, type thing. And they're realizing now that no, we need to start having more manufacturing on, not only in the country, but you need a global economy for your country to work. So I'm not saying you want to be like, oh, we're a nationalist this, but there needs to be a global economy. There needs to be a national economy. You can't have one without the other. So yeah, back to my other thing. It's like, yeah, being able to manufacture in-house would solve a lot of your problems, but not all of them, because the sewing quality that you see going on in the world is really, 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 really good stuff. That would be hard to match, honestly.
Yeah.
We're talking great skill, especially in China, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Mexico. They're some of the most skilled workers, and you look at your clothing, that's where it comes from. Yeah. And they're some of the best. But also on that same thing, we have reached out. We always carry a certain amount of American-made apparel. One right here in Phoenixville, near Norristown, is Camber USA.
Okay.
They make American-made workwear. We've always carried them. Union wear hats is something we're getting into recently. I think they're in down south, maybe North Carolina. So starting to offer as much of that as we possibly can. Yeah, but just that relentlessness. Just don't give up on that order. Keep trying. While we're on that too, that's one thing that about making sewing in America that I would like to do. Not so much because I'm like, oh, America, Yahoo, but because when you see the skill, if you take one of your best shirts out of your closet tonight and you look at the skill of what it takes to sew these together, some of them have 27 up to 30 people that are skilled at putting a shirt together like this. When you look at how they're stitched, how well everything is put together, this is a skill level that eclipses probably some of the most skilled like machinists and things.
Yeah.
For them to be able to do it at a fast pace and do it so well is amazing. The way things line up, when you look at a technical North Face outerwear rain jacket and you open it up and you really take a second to look at all the angles.
Incredible.
And it's really frustrating to me that there's some of the lower paid people on the globe because it just doesn't make sense.
Because it's skill.
Yeah, because it's just the skill. And sewing is one of those things that's up there on some of the top 4 or 5 things that we need as humans. Can you imagine if we didn't sew?
Yeah.
I mean, think of all the things that are sewn.
Clothes.
Yeah, I mean, clothes. I mean, parachutes. I mean, NASA has their own designated sewing department that sews spacesuits, that sews all kinds of outer insulation things for everything. I mean, sewing is one of those things people don't realize. It goes back a long way, and it's incredibly important to the global economy. Everything from simple clothing to some really technical stuff. There's some cool technical sewing where they sew carbon fiber together and various things. And that's something that when I was talking about wanting to make things in America, that's one of the things where I would love to create something that is sewn by skilled workers, and those skilled workers are compensated properly. For what they do. It's frustrating that I know that a lot of these people in the world are not getting compensated the way they should for the skills that they have.
What's next for you and your business? Any big plans for the future?
Yeah, I have so many plans that I would like to implement. What always gets in the way is paying the bills, paying the health insurance, paying the rent, paying everything. That's always what happens. We get a little bit slow, and then I'm like, okay, we're going to do this, and then before you know it, we get another rush of business, and we need to pay the bills, pay the employees. So I'm struggling to find this time where I can build the company to a point, and we're very close. Build the company to a point where I can actually back away from the production side of the embroidery and the sewing. And then I can actually look at everything and I can start to decide what is going to be my next thing. But I have all kinds of ideas. One of my big goals, and this is a wishful thinking thing, but I would love to do something that goes into space.
That's incredibly cool. I don't know if that's wishful thinking. It's possible.
Well, because I'm a big fan of SpaceX. I'm a big fan of anything forward. And when I see them, they're sewing things, they're working things together. They have parachutes, and I thought, man. And what's cool? I love old school patches, patches and stuff. And what do you see What do you see when you watch any NASA or SpaceX telecast? You see patches on things. When the guys arrive at the International Space Station, they have their crew patches. They have their mission patches.
The staple.
Yeah, it's gone all the way back to the very beginning. And
Shout out Aldrin Elementary. I went to Buzz Aldrin Elementary.
Oh, sweet. So. Yeah. No, he's great. He's still with us too.
Yeah. He's still kicking.
And so that's something. But to better answer the question, I want to manufacture something in-house other than masks that we did. That we actually have one hanging on the wall. That's the first thing we were manufacturing.
Commemoration.
Yeah, I literally put it in a frame because it's the first thing we did. We've done a lot of cool things over the time, but when it comes to, we've done flags and things like that. But yeah, that would be my goal is. I want to produce something that we have control over. Right now, when you come in and you want a hat, we have to order hats, get them in. I would love to be able to have complete control, what I think they would refer to as vertical integration, where you come in, a customer calls and says, I need 7,000 something, and we go, that's what we do. And we meet with the customer, we go over all the design things, we figure it out, and then we start the process of developing that product 7,000 times.
Perfect.
And doing it at the highest quality possible. That's something going forward anything technical, if you look up technical sewing, on YouTube, there's some really cool stuff happening out there. Really cool machines, really cool things that you just wouldn't believe, like what's going on. Lasers, all kinds of really cool things that, but I would love to move forward into more of a complete manufacturing process. That would be very, very cool.
Just before we wrap up, just go ahead and say where we can find you on social media, website, all that stuff.
Sure. To place orders, your best bet is to go on our website. It's borastitch.com.
BORA.
BORA. Yeah, after the Bora winds or Aurora Borealis, things like that. I'm a big fan of winters, backcountry skiing, and things like that.
Yeah.
So borastitch.com. You'll see the contact form. You can. That's the easiest way. It's just to say, hey. My name's so-and-so. And please use details. Please say, I have 5. I
don't say
5.
Yo.
Yeah, don't say yo. How much is embroidery? Be as detailed as you possibly can with whatever you're asking for, whether it's from us or from another company, and be detailed, and we will almost immediately call you back. We have it set up to where we immediately get an email. You can call, but our message just says to send us an email. It's Ryan@borastitch.com or Nick@borastitch.com. And our Instagram is @BoraStitch. And you can see our work and see what we do. And and we'll do the best job we can possibly do for you. I can guarantee you that.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come on today. Thank you for the hats. We very much appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for episode 8, another semester down. I'm actually going to be studying abroad in Madrid next semester. We're going to try to do some virtual episodes, but I'm not sure. We're going to figure that out. So keep an eye out for the updates on that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
BoraStitch.com.
BoraStitch.com.